All right, welcome. This is not a long awaited video, but this is a video that signifies me coming back to YouTube, I guess, a little bit. Um, I haven't posted a video in a while, gotten really caught up with the school newspaper and doing work for school and stuff like that. It's really hard to balance four things at once. So I kind of gave up YouTube, wasn't really making any money or getting a lot of traction off of it. So just gave it up for a little bit. But the NFL draft is back. And since Zoom has blown up recently, it's become pretty easy to do podcasts and interviews and stuff like that. So I'm here with my friend Jordan today, as you can see, and we're going to be talking about the NFL draft. So Jordan, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, nothing too big. I'm Jordan. I've known TJ since high school. Both Chiefs fans, and yeah, we're just gonna be talking about the draft today, going over picks, how we feel about them, and yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to start off, obviously, with pick number one. Talk about the first three picks: Joe Burrow, Chase Young, Jeff Okudah. Pretty much, those were the picks for everybody for
Yeah,
the last 3 months.
I
Um,
would say probably everybody had those top three. I mean, everybody knew Joe was gonna go first to Cincinnati. I felt like that was pretty much a given. Um, I would say Okuda was probably either. I think Okuda and Chase kind of flip flopped between. Isaiah Simmons was kind of up there a while though with him and Chase Young going back and forth for that type of um, defensive position top round.
mhm,
So
yeah. Earlier on, I think it was a kind of a battle between Simmons and Okuda to see who would go to the Lions because Patricia's got that background in Detroit where they use hybrid players like Trey Flowers and
yeah,
the McCourties and Dante Hightower and stuff like that. But they ended up taking Okuda, best corner in the class, and after trading Darius Slay, probably was their biggest need on the board. And then the first surprise of the draft to many came when Andrew Thomas got selected with the fourth overall pick.
for
Um,
sure. Yep.
he really good tackle at Georgia. Nothing bad about him really. Some people complain about his arm size a little bit. He's not your prototypical tackle size. He's not like a Tristan Wirfs or a Mekhi Becton or anything like that. But he's a solid 3-year starter at Georgia, one of the best running teams in the SEC and in all of FBS. So a lot of people thought it was going to be Wirfs here or Wills here, but they go Thomas, kind of like
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't know much about Thomas. I expected them to get something on their O line though for sure. I was expecting Wars for sure. Wars, in my opinion, being the best O lineman in the class. So
yeah. Then the next three picks were kind of like the first three: two at 5, Herbert at 6, and Brown at 7. Uh, those I think Herbert and Tua flip flop throughout the year, and then Tua got hurt, and Miami was trying to. They threw a lot of smoke out there saying that they were a divided front office. They didn't know if they wanted Herbert or if they wanted Tua, and they got Herbert's stock to drop a little bit. I think not drop, but like they alluded to the impression that they might want him, even though they thought Tua was their guy all along. They ended up getting him. Herbert to the Chargers, Philip Rivers replacement. I think he could come in and be successful right away, especially with the type of weapons that they have on that offense with Keenan Allen, Hunter
yeah,
Henry, if he can stay healthy, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams had the best year of his career last year. And then Derek Brown at 7, probably the best deep tackle in this class to a lot of people, but not to me. I was expecting Isaiah Simmons to go here, be kind of like a Luke Kuechly type replacement. But I don't know with that new front office what they were thinking. I think they just went safer with Derek Brown.
yeah. I didn't expect Derek Brown to go this high. To be honest, I thought Simmons was going to go 7 for sure. Since Kuechly did his thing and retired, so that was
Yeah,
my thought.
and a lot of people knocked Simmons. The knock on Simmons was that he plays too many positions to have one solid position, so that's why people thought his stock would fall. Which really, I mean, I'm not an NFL front office person, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like you've got a guy that can
Yeah,
basically do Tyrann Mathieu
you can
type
play
stuff.
multiple positions. Yeah, if you can play multiple positions, I feel like that make you more valuable. But I don't know.
I think that the new coaching staff in front office in Carolina, I think it might have been too big of a task for them to try and fit him in and try and work a system around him. They'd rather just plug a hole that they had at interior defensive line with not having Dontari Poe
Yeah,
or Gerald McCoy anymore. And
yeah,
then we're moving on, picks 8 through 10. Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals, CJ Henderson to the Jaguars at 9, and then Jedrick Wills to the Browns at 10. in going through the first 10 picks, I think Wills at 10 and Simmons at 8 are probably the two biggest steals in the draft at this point, because a lot of people thought Wills was the best tackle. He falls all the
Yeah,
way to 10 to a team that really needs a tackle, and
huge.
Simmons is just, in my opinion, was the second best defensive player in the class.
Yeah, Jedrick Wills at 10 for the Browns is a huge pick. They need that O line to be strong this year for Baker to try and come back and have a better year than last year. Because Baker really has no excuses right now. I mean, Jarvis Landry is still a solid wide receiver to have on your team. Odell, Odell didn't have the best of season last year, but
That was more on
I
Baker's
think
shoulders than it was on
yeah,
Odell's.
I think Odell's still one of the top premier wide receivers in football right now. So I mean, Nick Chubb in the backfield.
And
I
Kareem.
think this year, and Kareem. I think Baker should have a solid year.
They went
Um,
out and they went all out in free agency. They signed Austin Hooper to that big deal. They signed Jack Conklin to that big deal. They didn't improve the wide receiver core at all, but they kept a lot of in-house guys like Kareem Hunt, and
yeah,
I just think that they improved all around. And tackle play was big for them. They had Greg Robinson starting for them, who was the dude that got caught trying to smuggle like 150 pounds of marijuana over the Mexican border. So I
yeah,
mean, you
straight in
replace
the
him.
trunk, huh?
He was like the second overall pick the year that
Yeah,
Jadeveon Clowney got drafted, and he was one of the biggest draft busts ever. So hopefully you replace him with a guy like Jedrick Wills, who turns out to be the best tackle in this class. If you're a
yeah.
Browns fan,
I love CJ Jacksonville. I kind of knew they were going to go CB. They lost Boye and Ramsey, so I think CJ will fit in perfect with that system that they have over there. He's a
yeah,
good man-to-man. Uh, basically clamped anybody up one-on-one that he went against this year. So I think he's a good CB for sure.
there was a trend with a couple of the corners taken. In the first three corners were Okuda, Henderson, and then Damon Arnett. And the only guy that didn't get exposed by LSU was Jeff Okuda, mainly because they didn't play LSU. Like a lot of people
Yeah,
knocked a lot of the corners because like Terrell and Henderson had pretty bad games against LSU because they were having to guard Jamar Chase on one end and then Justin Jefferson on the other. Two guys who are going to be like Jamar Chase's wide receiver one next year. So people were
yeah,
knocking them, but you go back and look at all their other tape and they're shutting dudes down. Like
yeah,
CJ's really, really good. And he, at the beginning of the year, was a dude who thought that a lot of people thought he might be like late first, early second, mid first. And then he jumps up all the way to 9, which I think that's a really good pick for Jacksonville. I think he fits them very well.
yep.
All right, and then picks 11. We're just going 3 picks at a time here because that's the random number I chose in my head. Becton at 11 to the Giants, not to the Giants, to the Jets. Henry Ruggs at 12 to the Raiders, and then the Bucks made another trade. They made one earlier in the week where they traded for Rob Gronkowski for a 4th-round pick. They give up a couple more picks here to get Tristan Wirfs, the tackle that they really need to help solidify that line for Tom Brady. I think the best pick out of this 3 is probably Mekhi Becton. He, to me, is the 3rd best tackle in this class, but when this tackle class is so stacked, he'd probably be an OT1 in literally any other class. Like,
Yeah.
if he could have come out last year, he probably would have been the best tackle. He's just a big dude, can move well, and he's a mauler in the run game. It's exactly what the Jets need, especially after the type of season that Le'Veon Bell had, where he really didn't get any type of production.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about Mekhi Becton, to be honest, but I know that the Jets really needed an offensive line, especially with Lev Bell back there in the backfield, and yeah, I think that was a great pick for them, honestly.
Because he really had no type of help last year.
No type of help, yeah. I mean, if you think about the wide receivers they have, I mean, Robbie Anderson was hurt for a lot of that time last year.
And he's
And
gone now to
yeah,
Carolina.
he's gone now. Who's the other? Who's Crowder or something
Yeah.
like that? I mean, he didn't really do much last year either, so I don't know.
A lot of
Um,
their struggles started in the middle of that line. Like they signed Kalichi Osemele and then released him, and then they
yeah,
just had like a ragtag group of guys trying to protect for a young
Darnold was out
quarterback.
with what do you have, mono or something like that? Didn't
Yeah,
get
he did. I
mono. He was
forgot
out
about
for like
that.
half the season or something like that.
Like
So
4 weeks, I think.
yeah,
And then Ruggs, I think that's John Gruden and Mike Mayock trying to get a little bit like
yeah,
Kansas City. You
yeah,
know,
for sure.
I mean, we didn't take Tyreek in the first round. We let him fall to round 5. I mean, not
Yeah.
fall, but like
Um,
that's
I feel like a lot of people expected, probably Jerry Judy to come off right here, or CD Lamb or something like that. The Henry Ruggs pick, in my opinion, it's a good pick because if you're wanting speed on the field, like we have in KC, I mean that's who you want. He ran a 4.2, so I don't. He ran the fastest, I believe, combines 40-yard this year. So yeah.
And I think what a lot of people are saying is like, oh, he's just a speed guy. He's just this. He's just that. If you watch his tape, he's a good route runner. He's got physical hands, and he goes up and he gets the football. And
Crazy vert. Yep.
yeah, and while Jerry Judy is a great route runner, that he's good in that department, and then he's good after the catch. But over the middle, he gets a little bit timid, and he doesn't really go up, and he doesn't get a lot of balls. And also, a lot of the passes that he was catching at Alabama wide open because they've got to respect Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs on the outside and Devonta Smith. So when you're playing in a system like that where you've got a lot of weapons, sometimes the focus gets taken off of you. And Judy ended up in a place where I think he's going to thrive, and we're going to get to that in just a second. Because picks 14 through 16, Javon Kinlaw, Jerry Judy, like I just said, and then A.J. Terrell, which up to this point, Terrell was probably the surprise of the draft to most. The past week, this top 15 had looked like it had. Like it was pretty much this top 15. You could interchange like Ruggs for Judy, or you could interchange CD for Judy, or whatever. But these are pretty much
the tackles could be interchanged too.
Yeah, but for the most part, it was this pool of players that was going to go in the top 15. And then you get to A.J. Terrell at 16, and there was a lot of chit-chat this week about Atlanta wanting to move up to 2 to jump Detroit to get Okudah, which is kind of a little bit what they did in the Julio Jones type deal, but I think they would have had to give up they would have had to give up their whole damn draft if they wanted to get up to 2 in front of Washington.
Yeah.
I don't think anything was going to stop Ron Rivera from taking Chase Young with that pick.
Yeah. The Redskins were never going to give up 2, in my opinion. Chase Young for them is a perfect fit. He's a beast. So, yeah.
And Terrell was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be, late first, early second type, maybe fall to us. When I say us, I mean Kansas City. Maybe fall to Kansas City there. And he ends up going 16. Kind of a reach, but it's also a really big position to need. The Falcons haven't had, great corner play the last few years. I like Isaiah Oliver. I liked him in the 2018 draft. He was really good. But they just lost Desmond Trufant to the Lions in free agency. And so now they have they really don't have anybody out there. So
I couldn't name one. Yeah, I couldn't name one Falcons cornerback on that team besides Desmond Trufant. But
I think for them, they were probably going to go Kinlaw, and then the 49ers jumped and took Kinlaw from them, and they just had to take Terrell, which I don't know if that was the best pick there, but I think it filled probably their biggest position to need.
Yeah, that is their biggest position for them right now. Like I said, I couldn't name one CB for them. Desmond Trufant was the only one I knew. He went to the Lions, so I think that was a good pickup. I was hoping he would fall to us. Like if we didn't pull the trigger on Queen, Casey as in us. But yeah, he's a good CB for sure.
And then Kinlaw at 14 and Jerry Judy at 15. Two of the picks I really, really like out of this draft. The 49ers just continued to draft defensive linemen with their first pick. I think they drafted DeForest Buckner, they drafted Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas. They took a break from D tackles and they drafted Mike McGlinchey. And then they drafted Nick Bosa last year. And then they come back this year and they draft their 5th defensive lineman in 6 years, I think, in Javon Kinlaw, which in my opinion, is the best D tackle in this class. You watch his tape against some of his better competition in Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. He is wrecking dudes. Like he is so good.
He reminds me of Jadeveon Clowney a lot.
Yeah. And he's a really good pass rusher from the interior. He's long, he's physical. He does everything well. And I feel like he's going to be a good replacement for DeForest Buckner, who they traded to Indianapolis. And then Judy at 15 is going to be catching passes from our boy Drew Lock, local guy. And now that offense is looking pretty good. You got Melvin Gordon, Drew Lock. You got Noah Fant at tight end, and then you got Cortland.
Sutton. Yep.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and Jerry Jeudy on the outside. I mean, that's a deadly looking
That's
trio
a
right
nice
there.
offense for sure. I don't know too much about their O line. I don't know if their O line's good or not. So yeah, but they have plenty of weapons right now. Is Philip Lindsay healthy still, or
He was hurt a little bit this year, but he still rushed for 1,000 yards.
yeah,
And yet they go out and they pay Melvin Gordon all that money, which
yeah. I
what are you
don't know
gonna
about
do?
that. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. And then 17, 18, and 19, you have CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys, Austin Jackson to the Dolphins, and Damon Arnett to the Raiders. CeeDee Lamb, in a lot of people's opinion, the best wide receiver in this draft, falling all the way to 17. I think it had a little bit to do with his combine, ran a little slower than a lot of people anticipated. And, a lot of people have the knock that, I mean, he's great after the catch, but a lot of people are like, oh, the Big 12, not a lot of tackling in that conference. So
No
I think that,
defense.
yeah, that might have been a little bit of the stigma around him. Austin Jackson at 18, I think they were just trying to get a tackle, period. Like they just needed one. They couldn't, they lost, they didn't lose Laramie. They traded him and they got good value for him, but I don't know if Austin Jackson was the guy you go with at 18.
Yeah. I mean, CD Lamb's the Cowboys. Now Dak has no excuses to go off this year. Plenty of weapons. Austin Jackson to the Dolphins. I don't know much about Austin Jackson, to be honest. I've seen like a lot of other, sports media's places giving them like a C drafting grade and stuff like that. So I mean, but the Dolphins do need offensive linemen. So I mean, it's not like the worst pick. Maybe they could have gotten a better offensive lineman, but if that's who they wanted, then that's who they got. So
I just think
um,
that they, with their second round pick, because I don't think after Austin Jackson, there was only two more offensive linemen that went. And so
yeah,
if you really wanted Austin Jackson, I guess you take him there, but who really knows? And then Arnett at
yeah,
19 seems like a really Gruden grinder type player, a guy who's really physical at the point of attack, really good in press coverage, really good in man-to-man. He's a really good tackler. But I think it's a reach. I think that he would have been there for them with their second round pick. But I think that they don't really care what. And I think a lot of teams are moving in this way. They really don't care about what the pick is, or like they're not going for guys who are better or whatever. They're just going with the guy that they want and the guy that they
yeah,
like, and who they think is the best. Because I'm
yeah,
sure that they would have gone Arnett if Terrell was already off the board, or they might have
yeah.
gone Terrell. I don't know.
And I think we'll talk about that whenever it comes to Kansas City's pick, because that was a big deal. I mean, like Brett Veach came out and said, that was our pick all along, no
At
matter who
5
was on the
p.m.
board.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely the way that GMs are going right now. And I mean, if I was the GM and I liked that one dude and I wanted him, I would get him too. So I mean, it makes sense. But I guess that's why we're not GMs and why we're doing this podcast. So
yeah. All right, 20, 21, and 22. Caleb Chason to the Jaguars, Jalen Reagor to the Eagles, and Justin Jefferson to the Vikings. So a lot of people really, really upset about this Jalen Reagor pick. A lot of people have compared him to Tyreek Hill. A lot of people compare him to Deshaun Jackson. He's a little bit slower than both those guys. He didn't have the best combine, but nevertheless, he goes one pick after the 20th in the NFL draft. Justin Jefferson at 22. A lot of people think this is a steal of the draft, getting him at this spot. They traded Stephon Diggs this offseason.
hmm
He's probably a little bit happier about that, but they do get a running mate for Adam Thielen, so he's not the only target there. And then Chason at 20, one of my favorite picks in this draft. He's an excellent
yeah,
edge rusher, back-to-back years that they take. I mean, their defense is young and good. They've got Ronnie Harrison on the back end. They've got Josh Allen on one end and Caleb Chason on the other. I think this team, if they keep doing this, it'll turn into Saxonville 2.0 like it was just a few years ago.
um, I can understand why like some Eagles fans might be mad with Jalen going 21, but I mean, it's like we were talking about with GMs going with who they want. They could have picked Justin Jefferson in my opinion, I feel like Justin Jefferson is probably a better wide receiver than Jalen Rieger. But they wanted Jalen, and you can't be mad at the pick because Philly does need a wide receiver. I mean, no one in Philly can catch right now. I feel like, especially last year, Nelson Aguilar had so many drops.
And I
And
think
yeah,
that a lot of people get Aguilar vibes from Justin Jefferson at times. Like, I think he's
yeah,
a better receiver, but in his hands aren't the question. I think it's just he's very reminiscent to me, at least, of Nelson Aguilar, minus the hands
yeah,
issue.
yeah. And yeah, that Jaguars defense, if they can keep on just like drafting and transforming these defensive players into monsters like they have right now, and transform this young talent into that Saxonville defense, that could be amazing. So
Yeah. All right. And then 23 through 25, Kenneth Murray at 23 to the Chargers. Cesar Ruiz goes 24 to the Saints. And the 49ers trade up for the second time in the draft to get Brandon Ayuk at 25. Kenneth
mhm.
Murray, the Patriots traded out of the first round, which was a little bit
Yep.
surprising to me considering the fact that they don't have a starting caliber quarterback, in my opinion. Jarrett Stidham's good, but he was a fourth-round pick last year for a reason. And then trading out, they may like a guy at their pick. Maybe they think Fromm or Eason or somebody like that falls.
Yeah.
Kenneth Murray, to me, a little bit of a reach. To me, he's not the best linebacker in this class, and there are a couple linebackers taken before who I think is the best one in this class. But he's not really a point of attack type guy. To me, he's more of a sideline to sideline runner. He's very good at chasing the ball. He takes good pursuit angles, but his downhill run fits just aren't there, in my opinion. And he's not as physical as he should be for as strong as he looks. Cesar Ruiz at 24, a little bit of a confusing pick because he played center at Michigan. He played so well at center. He's the number one center in this class for me. And yet they have a young center in Eric McCoy, who they took last year, and they take
Yeah.
Ruiz. Maybe they're thinking about changing his positions. And then Ayuk at 25, essentially an Emmanuel Sanders replacement. I think he could play a lot like Emmanuel, and he can also add to that jet sweep game and that gadget type game that they run in San Francisco, which kind of was killing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with Debo to start. And I don't know why they got away from that, but those three
Yeah.
picks right there. Give us your thoughts on
Um,
that.
I think Ayuk for sure is going to be phenomenal. I think his ceiling's very high. I think he kind of has to be phenomenal. They gave up their whole second round basically to get him. But I do think he fits perfect into Kyle Shanahan's into his offense. That offense is high power right now. The Ruiz pick, it kind of confused me as well. Knowing and going back and looking at who they drafted last year, they did draft a young center. So they're probably going to put Ruiz at a guard spot. And yeah, Kenneth Murray. I thought he was. I mean, he's probably in my opinion, the third best linebacker in this draft class. So I can understand why the Chargers picked him. Is he like? Do I think he's going to transform into a phenomenal linebacker or anything like that? Personally, no, I do not. I think his greatest asset is definitely being a ball hawk, and he's fast. So I mean, I think definitely out of those three, the Chargers pick is definitely the worst in my opinion.
And I agree with that. All right, moving on to picks 26 through 28. Jordan Love goes to the Packers at 26. They traded up from 30 to 26 to get him. Jordan Brooks at 27 to the Seahawks, and then Patrick Queen at 28. These are the two linebackers I was talking about when I was referencing the Kenneth Murray pick, or when I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about the Kenneth Murray pick. I think Patrick Queen was the best linebacker in this
Yeah,
class. I don't
I agree.
have a position for Isaiah Simmons because I think that's like putting Tyrann Mathieu in a position. Like
Yeah,
he plays defense, and he even said it
yeah,
at the combine. Isaiah Simmons plays defense. Like, you can play him wherever you want to. So for me, Queen was the best linebacker in this class, and two get taken in front of him who I don't think are better.
yeah,
But we're gonna start with the Jordan Love pick. Kind of similar to what they did when they took Aaron Rodgers. They took Aaron Rodgers with the 24th pick, and when they took Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre was like 36, and Aaron Rodgers is now 36. So they might be trying to pull that switcheroo on us again. where they just keep reloading with great talented quarterbacks and they're always in the playoff hunt and they're always in contention for a Super Bowl. But a lot of people are really, really upset about that pick. And I really can't wrap my head around it because it happened to Alex Smith in Kansas City. You know, Rodgers isn't playing bad by any means, but you've got to get your heir apparent when you can, and especially Love. I think he's a developmental guy. He's a lot like Mahomes in the fact that his fundamentals aren't good, but his arm talent is through the roof.
Um, I can understand why Packers fans would be mad. Just in the NFC Championship game, I could see why they wanted weapons to be drafted right here for Aaron. But I can also see why they picked a QB. Jordan Love is not a QB is not a bad QB by any means. Definitely his ceiling's high, especially being a backup to one of the best QBs ever. And yeah, I thought it was an average pick for sure.
But a lot of people, or my concern with it is, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to take the Alex Smith type role. You hear a lot of people in interviews with Patty talking, and people ask him, "Well, what was Alex Smith like?" And he's like, "Oh, he was the greatest dude ever. He helped me out in so many ways. He helped me do this." And while still trying to like lead a football team to a Super Bowl and to the playoffs, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers gets that same type of vibe. You know, he's
I don't know if I definitely agree with you on Aaron Rodgers and his kind of leadership abilities, I guess I would want to say, and kind of, being that role model for Jordan Love like Alex Smith was for Patty. And I think, I mean, Patrick even said it himself, Alex Smith was a huge influence on how he plays the game right now. So obviously Alex Smith didn't have the arm talent. He's clearly wasn't better than Patrick Mahomes, but just Alex Smith's IQ of football and how to read defenses and stuff like that, I think it's really helped Patrick and how he's developed now. So I think Aaron Rodgers, if he could get his head wrapped around it, could for sure help this kid out. But in my opinion, he doesn't come off as that type of guy. So
no, he really doesn't to me either. I mean, I don't have any knocks against him. I've never met him. I'm just going off of,
I've never met him personally, but
no, I'm just going off of, the all the knowledge that I have, which is like through the media and the stuff that's made public. So, pick 27, Jordan Brooks to the Seahawks, another Big 12 linebacker. That's 2 in the last 5 picks, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to make sure 2 in the last 5 picks. Very, very similar player, I think, to Kenneth Murray. Both very fast. But I think Jordan Brooks's downhill run fit ability and downhill physicality and his willingness to stick his nose in traffic is what makes him, I think, a better fit in this system than Kenneth Murray. And I think I think Kenneth Murray's better, but I think I like Jordan Brooks more, if that makes any sense to anybody. But the linebacker that I like most is Patrick Queen. We talked about him already, and he went to 28 to Baltimore, and that to me might be like the best steal fit of the entire draft up to this point.
Yeah, Patrick Queen is for sure, in my opinion, the best linebacker in this draft class. It's kind of unlucky that the Ravens got him, but it's a good pick for them for sure. And I agree with you on Jordan Brooks. He's super fast, good sideline to sideline. Definitely is a ball hawk. I don't know about these Big 12 linebackers, to be honest with you, because there's just so much offense that's being played in the Big 12 right now and so many yards. I don't know how well they'll be in the NFL, so that'll be interesting to see how they grow and develop.
And Kenneth Murray goes to a team that like needs linebackers, but you've got Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright in Seattle. You drafted Cody Barton and Ben Burke-Irvin last year, and you just signed back Bruce Irvin, who is like a hybrid type guy. So, I mean, do you remember the draft probably a couple years ago when they had Chris Carson and Chris Carson had his breakout year, and then they took Rashad Penny with like the 27th pick. Yeah. And then last year they had Frank Clark and they had like good edge production, and then they took LJ Collier after they traded Frank Clark to us, which that made a little bit more sense, but LJ Collier still with that like 28th pick or whatever we gave them for Frank didn't really make a lot of sense. but they
No.
still remain competitive. They still remain one of the best teams in the NFL. It just sometimes is a little bit confusing when you have a position room that's really full like that, and maybe they think KJ's on his way out and they want a guy like Brooks to replace him when his contract comes up. So
Yep.
might be planning for the future there more than a guy who needs snaps right away, right now.
Yep.
All right, and the last four picks here, 29, 30, 31, and 32. Isaiah Wilson goes at 29 to the Titans. Noah Igbenogany goes 30 to the Dolphins. Jeff Gladney goes 31 to the Vikings. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes 32 to the Chiefs. We'll work our way down, start at 29. Isaiah Wilson, I think he fits what the Titans want at right tackle. He is a downhill blocker. He's really physical. He's got heavy feet and heavy hands. He just absolutely kicks dudes' asses all
Yeah.
over the place.
They're not looking for pass blockers right now for sure with Derrick Henry in the back. So getting Isaiah Wilson is a good pick for their offense. I feel like they had bigger holes to fill in my opinion because their running game wasn't weak by any means last year.
Leading rusher in the
So like
NFL.
yeah, I feel like maybe at corner they could have taken a corner right there. But like we talked about it before, GMs pick who they want, and that's who they wanted, and they got a good running tackle. So
They did lose Jack Conklin to the Browns, like we were mentioning earlier when we talked about Jedrick Wills at 10. So this is kind of the Conklin replacement. And they think they have Dennis Kelly there, who was the dude that caught the trick play touchdown against us in the playoffs. And that's
yeah,
pretty much all he's done in his NFL career. He hasn't been the best of right tackles, but I think Wilson, they have a good O-line coach there. They've got a good offensive coordinator there. I think they'll figure out a way to get him to be a better pass protector than what he is right now.
yeah,
Igbenogany is another bit of a head scratcher for most fans at 19. The Dolphins I think only had one good pick so far, and it was 2 at 5. They got the guy they wanted. But Jackson at 18, arguably a reach, and Igbenogany at 30 doesn't really make a lot of sense when you've got the two highest paid corners in the NFL on your team in Byron
does not make
Jones
sense.
and
Yeah,
Xavier Howard. So you wasted a first round pick on a nickel corner.
yeah. I thought they were for sure going to take a wide receiver right here, maybe.
Or maybe
I feel like
possibly a running back.
yeah, running back or wide receiver right here. Um, I don't even know who their running back is. I know they have Devontae Parker and Albert Wilson still on their wide receiving core.
They've got Balaj and then some white guy. I think his name's Patrick Laird. So
Patrick Laird. So I think maybe a running back. I think maybe a running back would have been more suitable for this team, but I don't know. I guess that's why I'm not a GM. So
yeah, Jeff Gladney at 31. One of my favorite picks in this draft. Was a
yeah,
little bit upset that he went one pick before 32.
yeah,
But he was another. He's another Big 12 defensive player. A lot of those got drafted this year, but he's a legit corner. He's a legit. He's not like a questionable D12 corner like Parnell Motley or some other guys are. Like
yep,
he's got the goods, and he's a really physical press corner. He's got good ball skills. He would have been a great fit in Kansas City, but Kansas City didn't get the chance to pick him. And then at 32, it took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which Trey Wingo literally called out. Like he went to Daniel Jeremiah and he was like, "Who do you think they take here? Do you think Jonathan Taylor, or do you think DeAndre Swift, or maybe JK?" And they were like, yeah. And then Trey Wingo was like, "Well, LSU does a lot of things similarly to the Chiefs. What about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?" And then we picked him. And for the last 18 hours, I've been trying to rationalize it in my head because I have all the faith in the world in Brett Veach. He's done nothing but great things for this franchise. And that the front office is one of the best in the NFL, obviously, since winning the Super Bowl last year.
yeah,
But it made me think like, I mean, this was our guy all along? Question mark. Like, was he really the guy that we wanted to get? You said earlier, Veach said, he was our guy since 5 p.m. I don't think that they knew that because they didn't know how the draft was going to unfold the way that it did with Queen going early. But
yeah.
I think
I think
I think I'd be more upset if like Queen, Brooks, and Murray were still on the board, or Terrell was still on the board, and we took a guy like Helaire, because I think there are bigger needs than running back at this point.
yeah. I mean, this is obviously going to be a big topic because we're two big, very diehard Chiefs fans. And I totally agree with you. I don't think it was the pick all along. I think it was the pick when Baltimore picked Patrick Queen. I think if Patrick Queen was still there, I think we were for sure going to get Patrick Queen. Um, and I do agree with you that there are holes that need to be filled on this Chiefs defense, and Patrick Queen would have been a perfect fit. Terrell would have been a perfect fit. But needless to say, I think that we did pick the right running back, at least.
I
That's my opinion on it. I'm not happy with the running back option, but I think CEH is the right running back for this team.
because you leave this draft or you leave the first round, you close the books on round one, and you've got guys like Jonathan Taylor, who's like one of a few like 3,000-yard rushers, or like I think he has like almost more than that. I think he's got like 4,000 yards in his
Yeah,
career. Uh,
pretty sure he just
J.K.
broke the all-time. Didn't he just break the all-time rushing yards record this year? Jonathan
I
Taylor.
don't think so. I think it's like maybe the most in the Big Ten or something like that. But
Yeah,
I think Donnell Pumphrey from San Diego State, for whatever reason, still has it. Um, and then you have J.K. still on the board, one of the best backs in the history of Ohio State,
yep,
more yards in a season than Ezekiel Elliott and Eddie George. And then you've got
yep,
DeAndre Swift, who's one of the best two-way backs that we've seen. Shared the backfield with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, and still found ways to get reps as a freshman and did nothing but great things throughout his entire college career. And then a lot of one-hit wonders from LSU got drafted this year, like Justin Jefferson, CEH, and Joe Burrow. So
hmm
I think that it was probably the best fit, and that's, I think, why they took him. I read something today that Veach said, go watch Clyde's tape, and he'll remind you of Brian Westbrook. And he told that to Andy Reid, and Brian Westbrook was one of Andy Reid's best backs in Philly. And Andy came back and said he's better than Brian. So I think that had a little bit to do with it. He's a great pass
yeah,
catcher. He's great at the point of contact. He's a physical runner. He's a patient runner. He's good at finding holes. He's good in his zone scheme, which is pretty much all they ran at LSU. So I think he was probably the best fit,
yeah. I
but
think he's
maybe not the
definitely the
most
best
talented
fit.
running back.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's definitely probably not the most talented one, but for this offense and for when he's going to be playing in this offense, I think he'll fit in perfectly fine. And like you said, I have no problems with who Veach picks, I guess, because I mean he's the GOAT after he brought Patty here, so that's
Yeah.
all that really matters.
Yeah, and when you think about it from like a contract and the future perspective, Damien's gone after this year, and we're paying him near $5 million, if not more.
Yeah,
So Damien's a 1-year rental at this point, and then Clyde has the reins next year, so that you're not worrying about working in a rookie running back into the offense. But it
yeah,
also begs a question. Me and my dad and my brother were talking about it earlier. This team, out of all teams, should know the value of a running back. We traded a 5th-round pick to get Priest Holmes. We drafted Jamal Charles in the 3rd round. We drafted Kareem Hunt in the 3rd round. And those are some of the, like, Kareem Hunt led the NFL in rushing as a rookie. Priest Holmes was one of
yeah,
the best top 3 running backs in the NFL when he was playing in healthy for the Chiefs. And Jamal Charles has the highest yards per carry in NFL history for a running back. And he was one of the best dual threat running backs as a pass catcher and as a runner in the NFL when he was healthy. It's just the health part. The last time we
yeah.
drafted a running back in the 1st round was Larry Johnson, and he had back-to-back 1,500-yard plus seasons.
Yeah.
So I mean, you
I
think
don't
that this
know.
team would have understood the value of a
Yeah.
first-round pick and to maybe have not spent it on a running back, but
I don't know. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of taking first round running backs, but yeah, I mean the value of a running back for this team right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure we have 5 running backs on our roster,
I think
and we
it's
just signed one
4.
in free agency.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest head scratcher, because I knew that a lot of people had us taking a running back, and then we
Just not
signed a
this
running
one.
back in free agency, and yeah, and I didn't expect us to really take a running back, and especially not this one. But the past 18 hours, like you said, I've gone back and I've watched some tape on him, and I can see why they picked him because he really is the perfect fit for the scheme that we run. It's a lot like LSU's. and I'm all in on him. So yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing, like I said, there's not, I don't, if I'm saying like I don't like this or I don't like that, these dudes are the 1% of the 1%. They're living,
yeah,
all of our dreams right now getting drafted into the NFL. And it's really easy to criticize them because they're on a stage and a level that none of us have ever been to and will never understand what it's like. But, when you have your own opinion, you want to try and validate it or express it or do things like that. So there's no ill will towards any of these players.
no,
You
not at
know,
all.
there's just, I
CEH
had,
will forever be, yeah. I mean, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome CEH for sure.
and we're loyal to all the players. We're loyal to all the
Yeah, for
players.
sure.
And you see, he's wearing number 25.
Yep. He better rep it though.
Hey, yeah, he's got big shoes to fill. Jamal was that
So
dude. Jamal was that dude.
Jamal was the guy. Jamal was the guy. So I mean, we'll see. I honestly don't see. I don't see him doing bad, to say
No,
the least. Like, I don't think you could really do bad as a running back in this system. I mean, it's really down to you just catching the ball and blocking, to be honest. And
yeah.
when you
Can you
get the
pass?
ball,
Can
you
you
run it
pass
right.
protect? And can you catch the ball?
Yeah. So
All
I
right.
mean, he can do both.
And
So
he's
yeah.
very good at both. One of the best pass catchers, um, in college football last year at the running back position. All right. So those are all 32 picks. The next section that we're moving into is our top 3 favorite picks and our top 3 least favorite picks. You may have got a little bit of the vibe of what we think based off how we're breaking down the picks, but I'll start out with my number 1 favorite pick. These are in no order. These are just my 3 favorite picks from the draft. Simmons to the Cardinals, Isaiah Simmons to Arizona at 8. For a while, he was considered to be, a top 4, top 3 player in the draft. They thought it was either going to be Detroit or New York that drafted him. He ends up falling all the way to 8. And with Wirf still on the board, with Jackson still on the board, with Becton still on the board, and a big needed tackle, the Cardinals decide to go Simmons. I think it's the right move. Like I said, man plays defense. Very Tyrann Mathieu-esque, except he's 6'4", 240 pounds, and runs a 4.39. So he's
Yeah.
going to be a Swiss Army knife for that defense. And I think, like I said, he was my second best defensive player in this class, right behind Chase Young. And, a local guy came out of Olathe South, 3-star recruit, and ends up being a top 8 pick. So big ups to Isaiah right there. And I think the Cardinals, I don't necessarily consider that a steal. I don't think you can get a steal inside the top 10 because you're in the top 10 for a reason. You suck. You're supposed to get the best players in the draft. But
Yeah.
him falling to 8, a little bit of a surprise, but nevertheless, I think he's going to be great in that defense.
Yeah. No, in no order. The first one on my list for my favorite is Joe Burrow. Cincinnati needs that quarterback right now, and yeah, that dude's a god. So nothing else really need to be said. I mean, won the Heisman, won the college football championship, and he's the first overall draft pick. So yeah.
All right, my number 2 fit was Ayuk to the 49ers. We talked about it a little bit. You mentioned it, that offense is deadly and that you think he'll come in and he'll be an impact player right away. They took Deebo Samuel in the second round last year, who was one of my favorite wide receivers. And in the Super Bowl and throughout the regular season, you saw them doing that jet touch pass, the end arounds, the zone sweeps, and stuff like that. I think Ayuk can be maybe better at that than Deebo was. Those are both dudes with great run after the catch ability and great punt return and kick return ability. So adding both those dudes in the offense, you're just making it more deadly at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that. My second pick is Isaiah Simmons. You already talked about it. That dude's a beast. He can do everything. Um, he's really Tyrann Mathieu-esque, like you said. And the Cardinals could have gotten a tackle, but I think they made the right pick. That defense is going to be crazy next year. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And they've got a lot of they've drafted a lot of hybrid players in the past. They drafted Tyrann Mathieu
yeah,
not too many years ago, and he was a guy that they played at boundary corner, slot, nickel, linebacker. They drafted Buda Baker a few years ago. He does the same type of thing. So it gives that defense a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. You just have to hope that they find the right way to use him, or else
yeah.
then. But nevertheless. All right. My third pick was Caleb Chase on to Jacksonville. Like I said, they could be building Saxonville 2.0 over there. You've got 2 really, really, really good edge rushers, really young edge rushers on that Jacksonville team in Josh Allen and Kayvon Chason now. Both very good in the run, both very versatile. They can drop back and they can play coverage, and they're also very good at getting after the quarterback. And I only mention those two because Yannick Ngakoue looks like he's on his way out. He's been beefing with the GM's son on Twitter about "get me the hell out of Jacksonville, y'all are snaking me," all that type of stuff. So I
Yeah.
don't think he'll be there for much longer, and they get an immediate replacement in Chason, and really just building that young defense, which if they fill out their potential and they get the right coordinators and position coaches and scheme around them, then they'll be great.
Yeah, that defense next year is going to be crazy. I totally agree with that. And another defensive guy on my list that I have coming up is Javon Kinlaw to the 49ers. The best D tackle in this class, in my opinion. That guy's a beast. Their D line is going to be big next year. They love drafting those D linemen. And yeah, I mean, that 49ers offense, that 49ers defense, I could see them right back in another Super Bowl. So
I wouldn't put it past them to be there. Like they absolutely dominated every level of the playoffs that they were in. It looked like a cakewalk, and then
yeah,
they came up against a team that they had never really seen before.
yep.
All right, my least favorite picks, like I said, in no order. And these aren't any, like I said, these aren't anything against the players. This is more of what the front offices are doing. Uh,
Yeah, I think this is, for me, nothing against the players. I think it's more of like maybe the GM's picks, not really that I'm saying the players are bad. I'm saying that the fit for the team maybe needs to
yeah,
be something more.
yeah. And my first one is not Dylan, Jordan Brooks to Seattle, mainly because they took him over Patrick Queen. And like I mentioned, they've got a lot of linebackers on that roster. Maybe they don't think that KJ Wright will be there for much longer, so they're doing a future plan. But I think Brooks would have been there. I don't know. He might not have been there with their second pick, but is that really a guy that you risk taking bigger positions in need? Like they need O-line help bad.
Yeah, they do.
And
Um, yeah. My
so,
my second one, my first one for the bad, for my bad picks for the team is Isaiah Wilson. I just think he's a good run tackle. I don't think that their offensive line really needed, that much help with Derrick Henry in the backfield. I don't think Derrick Henry needs that much help. He could honestly drag 4 or 5 people like he did last year the whole entire time. I think they could have taken a corner here. But yeah, I don't know. That's just my own opinion. So
all right, my second least favorite pick was Igbenogany to Miami. Like I said, you're basically drafting a nickel corner. You had 3 first-round picks, so maybe they were like, shit, what do we do with this one? Like, I don't know. They could have
yeah,
taken Delpit. They could have taken McKinney, replaced Minka Fitzpatrick with the pick that you essentially gave up uh, for him. And I
yeah,
thought Delpit would have been a great fit here. So I don't really know why they took Igbenogany, who they
yep,
said the rumors are that he's pretty much just going to play nickel corner, which in the NFL now, nickel is the new base because a lot of teams are running 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 running back sets. So maybe he'll prove to be good, but I thought he was better on the boundary than he was in the nickel at Auburn. So putting him in a position where he's less comfortable may not lead to greater rewards.
yeah. My second one is Damon Arnett to Las Vegas. I just think he's a stretch, but Gruden likes these type of CBs and these DBs, and he's a hard nosed type of guy. I just don't know if he was the right fit. Um, but yeah,
Or
that's
maybe he
really
went a
that's
little
really it.
early. I think he went a little
Yeah,
early.
yeah. I think for me, Arnett maybe went. Yeah, I don't know if it was more the fit, but maybe just like the fact that he did go maybe a little bit too early. So
Because a lot of people didn't even have him in the first round.
yeah,
And like draft experts who were like predicting the picks right as they were happening on live television, they had him in the second
yeah,
round and stuff like that. So, all right.
yeah. That was a head scratcher to me.
All right. And I have Arnett to Oakland as my third least favorite pick, but it's also tied with Terrell to Atlanta. I just thought that, you know, you cornerback was a need for Atlanta, but I felt like there were better players on the board for them to take. Like if they would have taken Kayvon Chason, then I think that would have been like one of my favorite picks in the draft. Mainly because they need edge help. They lost Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley wasn't really good for them outside of that one year that he led the NFL in sacks.
Yeah,
And but I think that they felt pressured because they lost Trufant in free agency to go out and get a corner. and possibly reached on one. Their last two drafts have been a little bit confusing because last year they traded up and they took two rookie offensive linemen. And
Yeah, I totally agree. Hold on, let me do something real quick. Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. I think Deion Jones needs some help right now at the linebacker position.
if Queen would have
My
went to
third
them at
one,
18, oh my God.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Uh,
I think you guys already got the gist of what we were saying about CEH, and that's my third guy. That no knock against him. I just don't know if he was the best fit for Kansas City right now. Um, I feel like we have so many more bigger holes to fill, I guess, on that defensive side. We really need that edge guy. I don't think Damian Wilson's the guy or Anthony Hitchens. And I think we need some CB help. So Travarius Ward had an excellent year. He played great. Bashad Breeland, he had his games where
played
I
well in
won
the
the
playoffs. Pretty much
played
secured
well
him
in
the
the
contract.
yeah, pretty much secured him the contract in the playoffs. Throughout the regular season, he had those 3 or 4 games where I just wanted to pull my hair out. And
Yeah. I think he
yeah,
led the
so
NFL in holding and pass interference
yeah,
penalties up until week 9 or 10 or something like that. But
yeah,
I think going back to what we said about Igbenogany, he essentially would be playing a nickel corner in Miami because they have two really good corners. Our corners aren't as good as that. Like Charvarius is
no,
maybe at the same level as Xavier Howard, but he's
yeah,
more of a shutdown type guy rather than a ball hawk, interceptor, stuff like that. So maybe their thought was we're okay with Breeland and Charvarius on the boundary. So our first round pick, if it were to be a corner, would probably be playing the same role. So maybe they think they'd get more value out of taking a Lair than they would taking a corner.
yeah. I could have saw us taking maybe Del Pitt or McKinney. We lost Kendall Fuller this offseason, so I just think that was maybe a bigger hole to fill. But other than that, we'll wait till tonight, see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I actually have an honorable mention. I have a fourth least favorite pick, and that was Patrick Queen to Baltimore. And that's not because of the fit. It's probably one of the best fits in the entire draft. He's one of the best. He's the best linebacker in the draft, in my opinion.
for sure.
I
Yeah,
just wanted him so bad, and he had fallen past teams like New Orleans, who needed a linebacker, and
that should have
Green
taken
Bay,
him. Yeah,
who needed a linebacker, and he had fallen past teams like that, and fell past the Chargers, fell past teams that took a linebacker like Seattle, and I was like, "Let's go, baby! We're gonna get Queen. We're gonna be running it up." And then Baltimore took him at 28, and so Baltimore sucks.
yeah. I think honestly, I might have been more mad that Baltimore took him than Kansas City taking a running back.
Definitely.
Because Patrick Queen would have fit perfectly into our defensive scheme.
I think there are some
And
guys that we have our eyes on in the next couple rounds that I think that maybe they're not as good as Patrick Queen, but they fit a little bit better with what Spagnuolo wants to do, especially with
yeah,
linebackers.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight for sure with who we get. But yeah, I can't wait for the season to start. If it does start, hopefully, there's football for us to watch, crossing our fingers. And yeah,
Yeah, all right, guys. So those are our thoughts on the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft. We might be back for a part 2 with rounds 2 and 3. I don't know about rounds 5 through 7 though, mainly because that gets into a point where I definitely don't have time to study all those players because
yeah,
neither of us do because we've got school and other things to worry about. So, we educate ourselves as much as we can on these players, but I think round 3 is where it might end for us.
yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I didn't even know some of the tackles in the first round, so I don't know about a 3 or 4 going for me. But for sure, round 2 coming up next, part 2. So we'll see what happens tonight.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you.